Well, folks, got almost everything started there. It's Thursday, 2 p.m. Pacific or 4 p.m. Central. I'm Fred McMurray, which means this mercifully has to be...
Hello, Miss Kristin. How are you? You're muted for one thing.
Call you Elizabeth too. We're going to call you Elizabeth too. E2
I have been
on.
very good lately. I just want it noted. Thank you very much.
You have. I have to admit, it's because my kids just came home and the dogs are barking, and I was embarrassed to have everybody hear that I'm in the dungeon, aka my basement today. So, happy Friday Eve, anyway.
Happy Friday Eve. We've got a great show today, I'm excited to say.
Oh my gosh, one of my favorite subjects we're going to talk about today. I can't wait.
Absolutely. We've got Craig Ceccanti on, making sure I got that pronunciation right, of T-Minus Solutions. He's got a great story, a lot of great advice for people who are starting up in business and franchising.
Yeah.
So we'll be on in a bit. But first,
Speaking of starting up in franchising, first you got to have somebody selling you franchise, right? Helping you find your way, so to speak, to find the right franchise. And what better way to do that than to get started with somebody who has been trained?
Exactly. So Kristin and I are leaving at the first of the week to go down to West Palm Beach to the Titus Center for Franchising. They are one of our sponsors, and she and I are on the advisory board for that. So we are heading down that direction. And John Hayes, who runs that program down there, asked us to let everybody know about a boot camp he's hosting, Selling Franchises Boot Camp. It's going to be January 19th and 20th after the first of the year at Palm Beach Atlantic. If you haven't been there, it's a beautiful campus.
Yes, it is.
Always good weather unless you're getting hit by a hurricane, which I think they fared okay today.
Yes, we did get the update that everything is fine and we are on track. Next week the week of the 19th and 20th is going to be great. They're going to teach folks how to how to generate qualified franchise sales leads, how to track and develop relationships with those leads, and ultimately how to sell franchises domestically and internationally, which is super cool. They've got 3 keynote speakers. So one from Clear Summit Group, Brand One Franchise Development, and Flick Switch Marketing, which will be super fun. And I think it's a good way, even if you've already been trained as a broker consultant, just to kind of take what you're doing, maybe re-energize you, plug into new resources, look at selling or helping people buy franchises in a different way. I personally don't like to call it selling franchises because I think it's more of a consultative role, and really helping match people with the opportunity that fits them best, not necessarily a sell job. But in this case, most people understand selling franchises to be selling. So, but it's going to be fun down at the Titus Center for Franchising at Palm Beach Atlantic. And again, January 19th and 20th, right?
Yeah. And if you are a CFE, a certified franchise executive, there's 300 credits in it for you. And if you sign up, I think the date was December 12th to get the early bird discount. So if you go on the Titus Center for Franchising's website, it's at pba.edu. You can Google Titus Center for Franchising, Selling Franchises Bootcamp also, and we will have the information on our website and in the magazine as well to help him get the word out. So
awesome.
Stay tuned.
Yes, and when we get back, we'll have a great story to tell you about our time and what we've learned down there. And now Ray has a special message for us after he takes it off mute. I've spread it to everyone. Even Ray doesn't know.
I did it.
We now have 3 Elizabeths. That's getting scary. I mean, we're going to have to, Elizabeth, what's your middle name?
Mute. Elizabeth, mute.
Mute.
So we're gonna. Well, no, we can't start calling you mute, but I think we're gonna have to quit calling you Elizabeth because we have E1 and E2, and
All right,
by your-
let's begin. I'd like to wish all veterans happy Veterans Day and thank you for your service. And a little reminder, I've been getting messages, from various VA organizations about free coffee and free breakfasts and lunch. And there's so many of them. I was going to list a few, but Starbucks is one as an example. But there's a lot of them. So go out there and Google it. And if you're interested in getting something free, that would be the way to do it. So again, thank you for your service.
Yay.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's introduce our guest. Are you ready, Kristin?
I'm ready. I can't wait.
Okay, let's introduce Craig Ceccanti. And Craig started his successful franchises, Pinot's
Palette, my favorites.
He's also has been a founding partner and advisor in various other businesses, including Seats and My Eats, mobile ordering software platform delivering food, drink, and merchandise to sports stadiums and healthcare campuses across the country. His most recent venture is T-, a SaaS platform, SAA. I don't know how do you pronounce that. Is that right? It's a platform that helps businesses with back-end software technology prepared for franchise development before they start expanding and support them through their franchise models. Craig is the president and CEO of T- Solutions. Craig also speaks at and mentors at Rice University's business students on his experience as a franchise owner, and he has author of upcoming book called A Founder's Guide to Software Startup. Welcome to the show, Craig.
Thanks for having me. What an introduction. I appreciate it.
Well, I have to really understand. So first, I love Pinot's palettes. As I mentioned to you before the show,
Yes,
and I love the whole Seats concept because there's nothing better than sitting down and being able to order food to be delivered to you. That's amazing. But the last part, I'm not a tech person, so you're going to have to explain that thing to me because I'm lost.
Yeah. Can you humor me? I'll give you the quick backstory on T-, and it'll connect Pinot's Palette and Seats together. So this will all make sense.
Awesome.
Okay. So my career, I'm a bit of a mutt as far as my career. I started my career as a software developer, went back to school, did the MBA thing, and then some strategy consulting. And that's when I started Pinot's Palette. We built all of our own proprietary software on the back end of Pinot's Palette. So it runs everything we do, our surveys, reservations, our website, the point of sale. It's all custom software. It was a big pain in the butt to manage a one-person software development shop within our franchise headquarters. And we've been open for 13 years. I think we'll be celebrating 14 years next year. And also Seats, which I co-founded in 2017, which is a sidebar interesting story, but also very challenging to get a software startup off the ground with freelancers and overseas resources. Even for someone like me who's managed many software teams, it was difficult. So I started T-. Like many people in 2020, I got to step back and say, okay, what do I love to do? And I came up with three things. I love building software, I love solving business problems, and I love working with entrepreneurs and founders, which has been, part of my track record, especially in franchising. You do a lot of it. And T- was born to work with startup companies like Seats and growth companies like Pinot's Palette to make technology and building your own software simple.
Awesome.
Yep.
Awesome. Cool. And so let's go back. I mean, because you're kind of the serial entrepreneur gone franchisor, right?
Yes.
And so each of these ideas, were they born? So I read the story on Pinot's Palette. Obviously, as soon as I found out you were coming on a couple of weeks ago, I was like, oh, I got to read all about this Pinot's Palette thing, because, so often people are sitting around, what do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? Right. And so now there's things to do. And that's kind of how we stumbled on Pinot's Palette. But I understand that that's kind of how Pinot's Palette was like an idea with the wives and something like that, right? The husbands and the wives. Tell us a little bit about that.
You got it. The origin story, and this was really, I'd say, franchising is what turned me into the serial entrepreneur. I did not, even at school, in the MBA school, I did not have ambitions to be an entrepreneur. And I blame it on my mom. She took my brother and I, this was 2004. We lived in Louisiana in around New Orleans area. She brought my brother and I to a painting class in 2004. My brother and I didn't want to go. We wanted to go out with our friends. This is over the holidays. We were all in town. So we thought we'd show her and we'd bring a cooler of beer and get drunk there, because you can do that in Louisiana. Yeah. Anywhere you go, you just bring a cooler of beer with you. And it stuck with me. We had a blast. I was astonished by what I was able to create, because I did not include myself as artistic at all. And then after Katrina, I moved to Houston and looked for something, because I thought it would be a good date night. And that's where my mind was at. So I pitched it to my roommate, who ended up being a co-founder, Charles Willis. And it wasn't until he got married to the beautiful young lady, Beth Willis, who said, this is a girls' night out, not a date night. And that's when the lightning bolt really struck. And the three of us founded the company finally in 2009.
Awesome. And so what are some of the real early lessons that you learned in building that company that you use even today with T-minus?
Oh man, we do not have enough time. I mean, we have so many, so many lessons there. Yeah, top ones. Ones I talk about a lot that I think are big, especially for new entrepreneurs going into franchising. We're thinking about starting any kind of business. Is go and take the Bossy quiz. It's BOSI. It's an online quiz. It's free. It stands for Builder, Opportunist, Specialist, and Innovator. Have you guys heard of that?
I've not taken that one. Jerry's nodding in the background, so
Jerry's
has.
saying yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Jerry, what are you? Do you know? Oh, okay. From you.
Gonna come to
it.
There. I'm sorry it took me a minute, Craig. I honestly don't remember. It's been a while since I did it. Okay. But I'm curious to hear more from you.
Okay. So the point here is that the better you can know what kind of entrepreneur you are, especially if you have a co-founder, you'll avoid a lot of mistakes. So we didn't find out, we probably knew, my co-founder and I are engineers, but we weren't cognizant of it. So we were both builders first and innovators second. So what that causes is you can do a lot of stuff and you think you can do it better. So you in-house a lot of things that you should outsource. And in franchising, outsourcing has a very specific and strategic capability that you should take advantage of, especially when you're trying to scale quickly. When you're trying to engineer everything in-house, I'll run your pay-per-click campaigns and we'll do all your graphics ourselves. That starts to become a problem. So knowing who you and your co-founder are, you can start to bring in other people in the organization. Like, we need an opportunist. And a classic example is the example of Steve Jobs and Wozniak at Apple. The opportunist, Steve Jobs, and the Wozniak who built the computer. They're a great pairing. Two Wozniaks doesn't get Apple to happen. Does that make sense? I'd say that's one really big lessons learned. And second, which is probably said in every franchise conference I've ever been to, whatever problem you start out at, the solution always becomes trust and communication.
Yeah.
It's paramount. It's a team sport like no other. And you have to be thinking of the franchisees, your staff as partners, and communicating and building trust at every turn.
Excellent. Sorry, Ray, I'm not letting you get a word in edgewise. It's your turn.
Greg, I wanted to ask you about your I'm tripping over words. Entrepreneurship philosophy. Yeah, that philosophy. Yeah.
Entrepreneurship philosophy.
Yes.
So entrepreneurship has changed. It's changed even at the university level. When I went through Rice, which is nationally ranked, it's typically number 1 to 5 entrepreneurship programs in the country. It used to be taught in a very waterfall method. Go spend 3 months and create this huge business plan that's 90 pages long, and then go pitch it around town, and then go do surveys for another 2 months. Now it's all very rapid fire. So my philosophy, like many, is how do you use it like science in a lab? You need to have a hypothesis, test that hypothesis quickly so you can figure out if your ideas are going to work in a fraction of the time and a fraction of the money. So instead of spreading all of that out and doing surveys, just create a sliver of your idea, even if it's a pop-up stand, get it out there, see if people will pay for it, and then quickly iterate. Don't spend all the time planning. And time is your most valuable resource. So that's my philosophy. And if you haven't heard the term MVP or minimal viable product, that's what we're teaching today, as well as the tool called the Lean Canvas is the now business plan that even the SBA accepts.
That sounds like my philosophy. So how does that match with your entrepreneurship spirit?
Yeah, I think the spirit, everybody has to have their North Star, and ultimately, otherwise your passion wears out. I think for not the seasoned entrepreneurs, but newer entrepreneurs, especially younger entrepreneurs, there's something very sexy about it, and it should be. I had a professor that when I heard him speak of entrepreneurship, it was like watching a magician. It was like, I want to be on the other side of this, of this show here. But what you don't always hear about is the unsexy stuff, the stuff that happens at 2 a.m. night in and night out, the calls, all the challenges. And, you have to have a real passion and a why that drives you and what you're doing. And that to me, that's the spirit, no matter who I'm coaching on what their idea is. So why do you want to do it? Because in 1 year or 2 years, when what you think the show, when you see behind the curtain, it's not quite as glamorous as you thought, your why needs to be very strong to keep you going.
I think the key word there is passion. You've got to have the passion. If it's not there, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, you'll be a number. And hey, you gotta. I like people that go and get after it and find out if their why is strong enough, and you just constantly have to involve. Rarely does someone end up where they even think they're going to start anyway. So
that's true.
And that's always the question, right? I still ask myself, well, what do you want to be when you grow up, right?
I'm still asking that question.
Yeah, I mean, I keep changing my mind because every franchise concept that comes along, I'm like, wow, that is really cool. And then another one comes around, I'm like, wow, I really like that one too. And then Jerry says, hey, Kristin, check this one out. And I'm like, wow, I can have this whole portfolio of all these different franchise concepts because they're all really solid and they're all really cool.
I thought we all wanted to be Ray.
But right now we're at a point, right? So you have different things happening in the world, and we have a lot of young people who have a little more money than I had when I was their age. And many of them have kind of started thinking that they don't really want to work for the corporation world anymore. Mm-hmm. What kind of advice do you give to the millennials and such who are starting to consider going out there and going into business for themselves? What do you advise them to do?
Yeah, I try to educate them on what life is like. My near and dear mentor, you'll probably hear me, Dr. Al Napier from Rice. He passed away earlier this year, and he taught me that entrepreneurship can be a career just like anything if done, but you have to find your style. My style is very risk adverse. So, I find things that I can really work the risk out of every step of the way. So it can be a job and a career, just like anything. It's not like it doesn't have to be like going to the casino. And we tend to hear a lot of the big casino stories. I mortgaged my car and I put it all down, and then I became a 10 millionaire. It's like, that's not really what most of entrepreneurship is about. It's not how I like to do it. So I think they should know that, but they should also know the terms of, I want to work for myself, or I want to be my own boss. That's not a real thing. You're always serving somebody, whether it's your real boss or your new bosses, your customers, your employees. You're there to serve all of them to achieve some goal for the brand and organization. So there's no such thing as being your own boss. Now, there is a lot of luxuries once the company's more grown up, and I'll equate it to children. It takes a while for them to learn how to wipe their own butt and feed themselves. And then you can get some more freedoms in your day and set your own schedule a little bit better, which is very rewarding.
Right. Well, and you've certainly run the gamut, and this is now 3 different franchises that you've founded, and obviously you're very successful. You do coaching and mentoring you've talked about. So what do you do to attract and retain and grow talent within your organizations? That's something we've been talking a lot about, and you seem to be successful at it.
I'll tell you one epiphany we had in 2017, maybe 16. We found a system called EOS. Have you heard of that? It's been going through the franchise community quite a bit, and it should be. It changed P&O's palette for the good in major ways. So for anybody that doesn't know, it stands for Entrepreneurial Operating System. It's based off a book written by Gino Wickman called Traction. You can self-implement it. Oh, look, it's the orange book on the shelf. Thank you, Karen. There you go. Bam. You got it. It's a great program. I highly recommend it in my personal rule because I've seen, P&O's palette, we grew it to 120 locations before we put it in. So we had all the damage of not EOS, and then we put EOS in, and it took us a long time to get a lot of things squared away. So my personal rule is, because I do a decent amount of investing as well, I do not start a business, get involved in a business, or invest in a business that does not have EOS or something like it in place.
Awesome. And
let me get to your question. It has some good frameworks. And one of the most important ones, you have to define your values and institute them into the day-to-day, have 90-day checkpoints with each individual that they're living those values. And the mantra is you hire and fire based off of those values. And EOS makes you do that. So how do I recruit the best talent? We don't have a crystal ball, but the system makes sure that the people that are meant to stay and see your values and understand your why will stay. And the others will graduate to customers. They'll graduate to alumni pretty quickly.
That's awesome. What a pleasure it has been to have you on this show. Tell our listeners how they would get in touch with you if they'd like to have further conversations with you.
Absolutely. Well, first off, the pleasure is all mine. Happy Veterans Day to all the veterans out there. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. You can get in touch with me. I love software and to talk to anybody about software. If you're thinking about building software, reach out to us at t-solutions.com. It's what we do. It's what we love to do. If you're interested in my book, which we hope is coming out first quarter of next year, if you have that next big app idea, go to craigceccanti.com. You can sign up for a newsletter to get an advanced copy.
Awesome. And where do we find you?
I'm mostly involved on LinkedIn. So if you find me on LinkedIn, connect with me on LinkedIn.
Awesome. And we'll have all your information also on our website at pillarsoffranchising.com. Thank you again so much. And we'll look forward to catching up with you again real soon, Craig.
Thank you.
And now,
hey, franchise owners, how's your local marketing? Do you feel like you could use some help keeping up with your social media posts and comments and reviews? Do you wonder if you could be doing more to attract local customers? Are you able to identify new move-ins to your local area? At Westbine, we help franchisees like you reach more local customers through digital marketing. With daily monitoring, creative content, and ad placement, and customer data intelligence, We'll get your business in front of the people who want your products or services. We also work with franchisors who need an agency to handle the digital marketing for all of their locations. If you're ready to reach more local customers, give us a call at 805-265-5440 or visit us at westbine.com. That's 805-265-5440 or westbine.com.
Hello.
Hello.
Greetings, Earthlings. How are you all today?
Well, Jerry,
Fabulous.
we're just glad you're back.
Did you miss me?
We always miss you, Jerry.
I'm not sure Fred misses me right now. I call
Oh,
someone like,
hell no.
You know, Fred.
well, wasn't it great talking to Craig? That was a one story. What a serial entrepreneur.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Speaking our language.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly right.
And I love, Jerry, how you have that book on your shelf. And it's actually in my to read pile that I've been meaning to get to. I've got like 4 books in my next section. So that's awesome. I can't wait to read it.
No, it's great. And it goes hand in hand with, a lot of work I do with leadership.
Yep.
Because you have to, it's that great leadership and having the systems in place together, dynamic.
And awesome that we've been talking about the last 3 or 4 weeks as well, all the different things to keep your employees engaged in the values and all that. So it's been a really, really right in line, succinct message. So hopefully people are understanding this. Not just us. He's thinking the same things. He's implementing the same things. So
absolutely.
Karen's such a show off. She's got all those books behind her.
I know.
The lake.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yours is better than mine. I'd rather be on the lake than reading books, but hey.
Yeah, Jerry, we can tell you're at the lake, by the way.
And I want to tell you, to go along with what Craig said, and Karen, you just mentioned it too, some of the most successful franchisees that I know have implemented the EOS system.
Agreed.
And they are exceptionally sold on it. They tell every franchisee that, their peers within the brand that they are in, that they have to do it. And I've seen some pretty major things happen after people implement that. So kudos to all of you who have done that.
Awesome. Hey, so we're going to talk today about some of the stuff coming up kind of in the franchise world, right?
Absolutely.
So, Karen, you want to kind of get us started on this subject?
When you say the stuff coming up, where I'm like, the stuff coming up. You mean
we talked in general, right? This whole conversation kind of started with a few different articles that we've been reading. Right. One talked about some of the great opportunities that are coming up with the people who've survived COVID. Right. And now here we have an economic situation where some of these poor people have barely made it out of COVID, and now there's yet another hit.
Right.
And they just aren't interested in doing it again. Right. And so we think we're going to see a lot of businesses start coming up for sale. Elizabeth and I had a conversation with someone the other day who's in the banking industry and helping people expand. And I know Jerry's been talking to a lot of people in that arena as well. And then Karen, you've been kind of looking at it from a different point of view, right? Some other things go along with that.
Yeah, it's interesting because so many times, during these times, I think a lot of people, there's a fear. Right. There's the whole fear. And Craig even talked about like risk tolerance and all that. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times people would be like, well, I don't want to do anything right now because look at where it is. Yet at the same time, that if you really think about it holistically and take a look at all the different factors, now's a good time. Now's a good time to go into franchising. Now's a good time to think about building businesses. I mean, there are a lot of factors that we need to take a look at. It's not just go out there and just do something and not think about it. Right.
Right.
But now could be a great time, even in the midst of what's happening with, inflation, COVID, all the different things that are taking place right now. Because a lot of people are tired of kind of working for someone else. I mean, look at all the layoffs and everything that's happening.
Yeah. I mean, who would have thought, really before Elon took over, I'm sure nobody thought that Twitter would see all these massive layoffs, right? Look at the home prices over in Silicon Valley and such there. I mean, those homes are virtually untouchable right now.
Right.
And now you have thousands and thousands of people who have no way to pay those mortgages, right? I mean, that's going to completely flip things upside down there. You're going to have businesses in that area who no longer have customers. I mean, just one small thing can create these big upheavals in a community. And so the one interesting thing that when Elizabeth and I were talking with this gentleman, and he's going to be on the show, so I don't want to do any spoilers, but the one thing he said, as money becomes more expensive, and it will become more expensive for a little while, we know that's bound to happen. And if you need to borrow money, remember to think about the fact of whatever the interest rate is today. If you can afford the payment today, make sure that you budget in the fact that you need to be able to afford what that money is going to cost you in 3 or 4 years or 5 years, right? Because if you don't, that's when you get in trouble. Because if you budget to only pay what that loan would be at 6 or 7%, and then it jumps to 10% and you're not prepared for that, or it jumps to 11%, that's when all of a sudden, oh my gosh, I'm out of money. I can't make my payments. And then you're in a fire sale situation.
Right.
So it's about being not scared, but prepared.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You get Karen started, and I'm over here making notes about all the things I want to talk about. So
let's go, Jerry.
Go right ahead, Jerry.
All right. Well, Karen, you just pitch in anywhere you want to, but I got to tell a couple quick stories first, because when you talk about, missed opportunities and things like that, one of my favorite stories was during COVID. I offered an opportunity to somebody that was anxious to become a franchisee in one of the brands I work with. And they had been bugging me for a long time. Then COVID hit, and they immediately put a full stop on it. And I said, it's going to take us 6 to 12 months to get real estate for you and things like that. So whatever's going on with COVID will work itself out, and you'll be ready to go then, right? He held off. I said, listen, I'm getting other calls from other people. You may miss out on this opportunity. And 2 months later, I sold that entire region. He called me 3 months later and said, hey, I'm ready to go. And I said, I'm sorry, we have no more licenses available, because somebody saw the opportunity and they knew that it was the right thing for them at the right time. Right now, today, I'm working with franchisees who are, they're running profitable locations for profitable franchise systems. And I'm talking to them about expanding within their region, putting their name on a new lease and things like that. And they're like, time out. I want to see what's going on with the economy. I want to see where we're going with all this kind of stuff. Same story. I'm getting calls for people who want those locations. I'm not going to hold them forever. So if you don't strike, somebody else will. I've got somebody right now today who is opening their first location. There is a brand new center being built. It's going to be the power center for their area. I said, the broker's already sent us some locations for buildings that are not even built yet. And I said, okay, pick a spot. We're going to negotiate. And they are holding off. I said, well, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to negotiate. I'm going to put the lease in my name, and then you can buy the rights to it from me when you decide you want to go there, because we're not losing that opportunity. So the thing I want to tell you, when you're talking about interest rates and borrowing enough money, first off, you should be borrowing enough money the first time you go, not having to worry about borrowing more money later on. So I think, Kristin, quite often you say double is the number. Maybe double's a little high, but somewhere in that region. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is, interest is tax deductible. It's a cost of doing business. And if you add up lost opportunity costs, that gets to be way higher than 1 or 2 points change in your interest rate. That's okay, right. Those are my notes. All right, you two go.
Totally agree. I think too, because people get caught up in all the other stuff and the negative and they're scared. Instead of land of plenty, it's land of scarcity. And then they freeze. And then that's when someone else, you're right, Jerry, they kind of jump in and like, okay, I'm going to go right now. Yeah. And I'm thinking, if you take a look at history, this is when a lot of good ideas happen. This is when success happens in these times.
I've said it forever, and I will repeat this until they put me in the ground. All right. During the Great Depression, the people that came out of that as millionaires were the people that took risks, took what money they had and invested it wisely, because they could buy for pennies on the dollar. Now, there's opportunities out there right now that people think are too expensive, but in 1 or 2 years, they're going to be even more expensive. So don't miss that opportunity.
Yeah. And I think, Jerry, you've mentioned one way of doing it, and that is opening new locations. But don't you also find that there are a lot of resales that are out there right now, many of which, some are just, maybe they're of the retirement age. Maybe they are indeed people who just can't hold on any longer after the pandemic.
Well, this is a hot topic amongst those of us that swim deep in the franchising pool right now. I just talked to our friend Red a couple nights ago about this subject, because he's got, I think he said 1,000 franchise systems that do resales through him. So the answer is yes. I know within I'll just use Great Clips as an example. There are hundreds that are going to be either on the block right now or will be very shortly, because, as you mentioned, retirement is one thing. You mentioned also that, frankly, people that only have 2 or 3 units tend to be the ones that are getting tired of fighting the battles right now, because there's just not enough meat on the bone to keep them excited. The retirement ones are usually a little bit bigger unit size, like maybe 5, 10, 15, 20. The ones that are tired of fighting the battles have between 1 and 3 locations. But somebody, when I bought all the acquisitions that I've done in my career, I like them to be breaking even, but I just want them to be covering most of their bills, because if I'm looking at them correctly, I see the opportunities by implementing systems. As Craig mentioned, EOS might be one of those. Marketing systems, management systems, operations, things like that. And then really fine-tuning your marketing after that. We've had many of our locations that we've doubled the volume on within a year. So buying them, even if it seems expensive, especially because of interest right now, if you buy one that's cash flowing or near cash flowing, that has upside, you will never get a better opportunity than right now. And I think after January 1st, you're going to see even more of them, because a lot of people are just trying to get through the end of the year. Yep. Maybe first quarter, they get their taxes done and see that they didn't do as well as they expected. And they're like, I'm done. Somebody make me an offer. I'm out of here. So be prepared, because there's going to be a fair number of opportunities coming down. And by the way, there's going to be a lot of people looking at them. So don't wait too long once you get introduced to them.
Well, and the beauty of a franchising, the whole franchising system, is you have those systems in place. So, Kristin, you talked about if you can actually buy one that's existing, so then you're not doing a lot of build outs and all that. You have that. And then you have a system in place. So, it's almost like sometimes they have the battle scars of what's been working, not working. So you can learn from that. So you're not just starting from a blank sheet of paper. And I think that's a great place to start too in these times.
Yeah, it's easier, I think, in a system like a franchise to identify where the failures are, where the systems weren't being followed, than if you were to buy, someone's private business. I mean, then you had to have been in the field, and who knows where they're hiding things, so to speak, and not doing things properly. A franchise system makes it a lot easier to do those things. But I also think those, people who perhaps were a little more savvy with their PPP money, the ERTC money.
Yes.
And they took the EIDL loans and didn't go and blow them, are sitting on cash right now.
Mm-hmm. Agree.
And so some are just waiting for the right thing to come along.
Actually, now that you brought that up, Kristin, I've talked to probably 6 to 10 franchisees nearing retirement age, probably not quite ready yet, who are saying, I have got a lot of money in the bank from everything that's happened over the last couple of years. My operations are back where they need to be, above break even, maybe making some money. There may not be another better time in history for them to get out than right now, because they've got money in the bank that they've already washed through the system, and it's clean and they can keep it. Sorry, it's the mob background coming out in there.
Right.
So they've got a pot of cash sitting there. And now they've got 10 locations that are going to sell for $250,000 a piece. They're going to find somebody that'll give them $2.5 million for that thing. they don't have any more operational headaches. They're done.
Yep.
They're out of here. Maybe they self-finance 80% of it, so they'll have interest payments coming in. Oh, and by the way, Kristin, to your point, if it's a franchise system, the field operations people from the franchisor probably know the systems that aren't being failed, and they'll be more than happy to explain that to a brand new owner.
Totally.
Exactly.
So that they say, all you got to do is this, this, and this, and you'll turn this thing around in a heartbeat.
Oh, yeah.
Because
I
they
mean,
know. Yeah.
Yeah, and we actually, you know, at our last neighborly event, I found a few of our fellow owners that they said, you know what, I'm out because I've got this extra money. We're doing well, but I've been doing it for 25, 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to go retire on the beach. I'm like, dude, what a great idea.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and something nobody thinks about, I do all the time because I'm wired that way. But if you know of a franchisee that's been doing it for 20 or 25 years and you really want to buy them out, taking them to coffee might turn into a business purchase option, because all you have to do is talk to them about, man, you run a great operation. I'd sure like to do that someday. If you ever think about getting out, think of me. I'm willing to go deep on this thing, however you want to put it. And you might suddenly, you know, tease somebody into saying, well, let's talk, because a lot of people haven't really thought about it, but they know they're reaching the end. They don't have a plan. You might be their plan.
Well,
and I think
go ahead, Karen.
I was going to say, and I think a lot of people, maybe even 6-9 months ago, a lot of franchisees were hesitant to sell because of where things were. They were just kind of coming back. And now it is, even though we have inflation, a little bit of things going on, a lot of franchises are coming back. So you're right. They've got the cash, they've got everything. And so they're much more open to it than they were even 9 months to a year ago.
Yep, absolutely. And let's not forget the whole OPM, right? Other people's money. A lot of these people would love to get a monthly check from you. Yes. Let them finance the loan, right? Say, hey, listen, I'll pay you $2,000 a month. In addition to your Social Security check and any other annuities you have come in every month. They can live high on the hog wherever they want, and you've got pretty cheap money.
Yeah, and you got to remember, if somebody's been in the franchise system for 20, 25 plus years, and they've done well for themselves, they've put money in other investments and moved it around and things like that. So if they're doing the math because you nudged them and said, hey, maybe someday, you know, and they start doing what you just did, Kristin, they might look at Social Security, but frankly, for somebody like that, Social Security is going to be the smallest. That's going to be their spending money, their pocket money, you know, because they should have a bunch of money stuck away in stocks, bonds, whatever, maybe real estate, something like that. Yeah. And so that check that's coming in for their past business for the next 10 years or whatever is supplemental income. It's right. The extra income.
The gas money.
That's right.
Oh, Lordy. How do you get that one in, Jerry?
I do want to tell you guys, I am talking to dozens of people right now that are in the process of looking for an opportunity to get out of what they're doing. Interestingly enough, I'm talking to dozens of people who think now wouldn't be a bad time to get into franchising. And as you've heard me say on this show in the past, you know, when I hear somebody say, well, maybe I'll get into franchising when the economy gets better. Everybody wants to get in when it gets better.
That's right.
Right? If you buy the right franchise, because let's face it, there are a lot of franchises that actually do better in recessions than they do in normal times, because, and I'll use our business as an example, we always grow during recessions because people that were spending $40 or $50 for a haircut don't want to spend $40 or $50 anymore, but they still want to get the same number of haircuts. So suddenly a $18 or $20 haircut seems like a great deal. So we pick up a lot of business. Now you can look at any category out there and somebody fills that niche, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're looking to buy one and you're worried about the economy and what's going to happen in the next couple of years, just pick the right one.
Absolutely. Oh, all of a sudden I got in the dark. Yeah. I think also, you know, Jerry, you were talking about, even if you think about like food, all those, there's so many, you know, there's so many opportunities out there where you're right. It's right now is a great time. So, what we would say is advise someone to take a look at not only the market, take a look at like the FDD, take a look at how the franchisor, are they growing? So there are a lot of things really to take a look at to make sure you're buying the right opportunity at this time as well, too.
Right. And we've gone back, a couple episodes ago or a few episodes ago, and we talked about recession-proof businesses, right?
Right.
So again, whatever, whether it's, home maintenance, not home improvement per se, but things that you have to do. You have to have your plumbing done. You have to have your appliances fixed. You have to have electrical fixed.
You have to eat.
Yeah. I mean, they're just things that have to happen. And so those are kind of no lose categories. If you in terms of eating, I wouldn't go buy a fine dining place when the economy is bad. But, if you have a moderate restaurant, you're probably not going to lose, providing you provide good service and a proven model. Right. So, and you're not buying super expensive,
I'll guarantee you moms are going to continue to take their 3 little kids out for some kind of a burger or something on a regular basis because it's inexpensive. It's easy. It's quick. They're on the run. So there are, you can look at sub sandwiches. You can look at pizza. Pizza's always going to be good in that situation. Most hamburgers, all those kinds of things. There's literally, hundreds of potential operations that you should be looking at. And Karen, you talked about it earlier. There are a lot of people that are worried about their jobs right now because when the economy goes down, you can talk about Elon Musk and Twitter, but Facebook, look at what's going on with Facebook.
I was just going to say that. I'm seeing a lot of that on LinkedIn. Yep.
And it's going to continue to spread to other businesses. Now, when you get let go in a situation like that, you can, clean up your resume and take it down the road and get another job that could be gone in 6 to 12 months. Or you can invest that same time and effort into looking into a franchise and picking one that's good for you, become your own boss, perhaps not have to work very many hours after a couple of years of hiring the right people and getting it up and running, and actually make way more money than you would in any, job that you would have taken.
Right. And one of the things that we talk about too is that during this time, don't run away from something, run towards. So making sure whatever you're running towards also meets and your values, your value system. Is it the right system for you? So, with that said, it's just making sure you've got the right opportunity for you, the right match. As Craig was saying, I think you what is it? I'm going to look it up. The BOSI, BOSI. Or bossy. I like that. So I'm going to take a look. But it's also making sure that you've got the right one too, and you're running towards the right opportunity.
Yep, absolutely.
And another thing that people may be hesitant about during this time is the old, I don't know anything about franchising. I don't know if I will buy a franchise that is in my wheelhouse. And so where am I going to get help? Well, we're help. But the franchise system, whether it's the franchisor, the peers, the other franchisees within that system, or people like us who do coaching and consulting. I've got a client right now of an emerging brand that is not getting a lot of support. And in an hour, I gave them 2 pages of things they can do that literally will double their revenue in the next 6 to 12 months.
Yep.
And I did a follow-up. They've done 3 of them because I told them to focus on 3 to start with. And they're already seeing a big uptick. So if you're considering buying a franchise and any of those things concern you, just find the right coach, mentor, whatever. There's plenty of help.
Makes a difference because it's all that tribal knowledge.
Tribal knowledge. I like that.
Yeah.
Well, that's again, right. You're in business for yourself, but you're not in business by yourself. The beauty of franchising. So I'd like to thank you both for joining us today and all of your thoughts and outlook on the franchise world and what's going on today and in the near future. And at this point, I think we have to pay the bills again. We have a lot of bills. We'll see you both again next Thursday.
Thank you.
As usual, thank you for joining Pillars of Franchising. We appreciate every single one of you. We want to give a shout out to our sponsors, the Titus Center for Franchising at Palm Beach Atlantic University. You can find them on the college's website. Also, Franchise Show 247, which can be found at franchiseshow247.com. We couldn't do without our sponsors, and we appreciate their support. Don't forget, we love to have calling guests. Our number to call in is 323-580-5755. That is 323-580-5755. If you have questions for our guest or for any of our Million Dollar mentors, we welcome you to call in at any time on the show. We will do our very best to answer your calls. Stay tuned. More coming up.
And we would like to thank you all for joining us on the show today with our guest, Craig Ceccanti of T-Minus Solutions. Please be sure to like, share, and comment on this episode as well as any other that you find out there. We'd like to thank Ray Pillar, Jerry Akers, our Million Dollar mentors, Karen Kimsey Sword of Dale Carnegie, and Fred McMurray and Elizabeth Denham, our producers. I am Kristin Selmeczy, and together we are your resource for franchising success. This has been another episode of Pillars of Franchising, and remember, the dream starts here. Have a great week.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.
Okay.
Why is
And
everyone
that,
so
I
quiet?
pray, puts us out.
I was just waiting to see if we were out.